There is a quiet pressure that settles in around 30. Not loud enough to name, but constant enough to feel. You scroll and see peers announcing promotions, engagements, relocations, milestones presented as proof of momentum. Meanwhile, you measure your own progress in private questions. Am I late? Did I choose wrong? Why does ambition still burn while energy feels thinner than it used to? You are no longer a beginner, yet not fully established. The expectations are heavier now. This is the age where comparison sharpens, doubt deepens, and the direction you choose begins to matter more than applause ever did. This is the age where ambition collides with evidence. In your early 20s, desire was enough. You believed effort guaranteed acceleration. Now you've lived enough to question what truly matters. You've experienced promotions that didn't fulfill you, relationships that looked right but felt misaligned, projects that consumed months yet delivered little return. The pressure you feel is not immaturity, it is awareness. You see the gap between imagined timelines and lived reality. Success is not linear. It bends, stalls, and redirects. The illusion was that by now, things would feel settled. The truth is more nuanced. This decade exposes the architecture beneath your ambition. Some beams are solid. Others need reinforcement. The philosopher Socrates observed that the unexamined life is not worth living. For someone in their late 20s or early 30s, examination is no longer optional. It is strategic. Reflection is how you detect structural weaknesses before they become collapses. You are not unraveling. You are inspecting the framework. Perhaps you chased a career path because it promised status, only to realize the daily work drains you. Perhaps you stayed in a relationship because it looked stable, yet internally you sensed divergence in values. Perhaps financial pressure forces you to weigh security against purpose. These are not signs of failure. They are signs that your internal standards are maturing. This isn't panic, it's recalibration. Your 20s were largely about proving intelligence, proving capability, proving you deserved a seat at the table. But somewhere between 27 and 34, the game changes. You begin to notice that external validation has diminishing returns. Applause fades quickly. Titles lose their shine. You're old enough to know that chasing approval is exhausting. You're young enough to change your direction. The deeper work now is defining. Who are you when nobody is clapping? What kind of work aligns with your values? What standards will you refuse to compromise? This is identity under construction, not from scratch, but from refinement. You are not starting over. You are editing the blueprint. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." At this stage, identity shifts from theory to embodiment. You stop debating what success should look like and begin practicing what alignment feels like. The proving phase sought recognition. The defining phase demands integrity. Editing your blueprint may mean declining opportunities that look impressive but distort your direction. It may mean admitting that a path you committed to at 23 no longer reflects who you are at 31. Friedrich Nietzsche declared, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Clarity of purpose does not eliminate difficulty. It transforms it into meaningful strain instead of pointless stress. Editing requires courage, because it often involves letting go of a former identity, the ambitious consultant, the dependable partner, the high achiever who never falters. But growth is not demolition. It is renovation. Earlier, speed felt like safety. Movement meant progress. But motion without direction creates distance from yourself. A strategic pause at this stage is not weakness. It is navigation. Just as a captain recalibrates coordinates before crossing open water, you must assess where you are headed. The decisions you delay compound. The misalignments you ignore solidify. William James, the pioneering psychologist, wrote, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." At this turning point, the most powerful shift is internal. When you reinterpret delay as positioning rather than inadequacy, your behavior changes. You choose deliberately instead of reactively. Clarity now saves years later. Slowing down to think in decades, not months, protects your trajectory. It may look like you're behind when you step away from a draining role or reconsider a long-term relationship. In reality, you are reinforcing structural integrity before adding new floors. Consider the architect who rushes to build upward without securing the foundation. The height impresses briefly. The cracks appear later. You are strengthening the base. Skills, judgment, financial discipline, emotional intelligence. That reinforcement rarely trends online, but it determines durability. Speed impresses, direction endures. What you build now determines leverage later. Skills compound, networks deepen, reputation solidifies. Discipline becomes identity. Invisible work, reading when no one sees, refining craft after rejection, saving instead of spending, strengthening your body, repairing your mindset does not trend online, but it compounds quietly. Albert Einstein famously noted, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." Compounding applies beyond money. Daily habits, repeated conversations, consistent skill building, these generate exponential returns over a decade. Neglect compounds as well. This is the foundation decade, not glamorous, not always celebrated, but decisive. You may feel financial pressure, balancing rent or mortgage payments with investments in further education. You may feel relational uncertainty, questioning whether the person beside you shares your long-term direction. You may fear being late, compared to peers who seem more settled. Yet comparison is a distorted metric. You see their outcomes, not their doubts. Viktor Frankl, who studied meaning under extreme adversity, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." In your career pivots and setbacks, the controllable variable is always your response. Ownership converts circumstances into strategy. When you stop optimizing for applause and start optimizing for alignment, your trajectory changes. You trade short-term validation for long-term positioning, and positioning, sustained over years, becomes power. James Allen expressed it plainly. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. Identity precedes opportunity. The disciplined, aligned version of you will attract different possibilities than the approval-seeking version ever could. The question is no longer, how fast can I rise? It becomes, what am I building that will last? If this decade is about positioning rather than arrival, then your setbacks, pivots, and doubts are not detours, they are data. The rejection refines your skill. The failed venture sharpens your judgment. The ended relationship clarifies your standards. Interpreted correctly, each experience strengthens your navigation system. Recognition leads to awareness. Awareness invites reframing. Reframing demands ownership. Ownership produces action. You are not behind. You are in the middle of construction. You begin to see behind curated success. Everyone looks certain. Most are recalibrating privately. The quiet panic you feel is widespread, but here is your advantage: pattern recognition. You've experienced enough wins to know what energizes you, enough setbacks to recognize what drains you, enough responsibility to understand that time is no longer theoretical. You are not behind. You are aware. Awareness is an edge. In your early 20s, you operated largely on borrowed definitions of success. Now you see the machinery behind the outcomes. You understand that promotions often conceal burnout, that relocations can mask escape, that engagement photos do not reveal compatibility under pressure. This clarity does not make you cynical, it makes you strategic. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of the panic around timelines is projected, not factual. When you examine your actual progress, skills gained, resilience built, insight earned, you realize you are not stagnant. You are stabilizing. The pressure you feel is less about falling behind and more about wanting your direction to matter. Your first real failure cuts differently: a rejected proposal, a stalled career move, a relationship that didn't survive reality. Earlier disappointments felt temporary. Now they feel consequential. But consequence is leverage. Failure at this stage sharpens judgment. It exposes blind spots. It teaches negotiation with employers, with partners, with yourself. When a promotion goes to someone else, you are forced to confront uncomfortable questions. Is it a skill gap? A visibility issue? A misaligned environment? When a relationship ends, you reassess communication patterns, shared ambition, emotional maturity. These moments sting because they challenge identity, not just outcome. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At this stage, obstacles are not interruptions to your trajectory, they are refinements of it. The very resistance you encounter shapes the discipline and clarity required for the next ascent. Setbacks refine your standards. They force skill acquisition. They push you to reassess environment and strategy. The pain you experienced was tuition, and tuition, when applied, becomes strategic advantage. Perhaps you launched a side venture that failed to gain traction. Now you understand market validation, cash flow, and patience in ways theory never taught you. Perhaps financial strain revealed the cost of impulsive spending. Now budgeting is no longer restrictive, it is empowering. What felt like falling behind may have been forced alignment. Compounding is invisible at first. A certification earned, a habit sustained, an investment made, a difficult conversation handled with maturity. None of these create overnight transformation, but layered consistently, they reshape identity. 10 years of disciplined reading sharpens thinking. 10 years of financial responsibility creates optionality. 10 years of physical care protects energy. Albert Einstein observed, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Compounding applies to character as much as capital. Every disciplined action either builds momentum or accumulates regret. The mathematics of your 30s determine the architecture of your 40s. Consider the professional who commits to mastering communication, presenting clearly, negotiating firmly, listening attentively. Year by year, that skill compounds into influence. Consider the individual who invests modestly but consistently. Over time, optionality replaces anxiety. Consider the person who chooses long-term health over short-term indulgence. Energy becomes a competitive advantage. You are building the version of yourself your future opportunities will require. William James wrote, act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. In this decade, small disciplined acts are not trivial. They are trajectory shaping. The repeated choice to study, to save, to practice, to improve, these become identity. What you repeat now becomes who you are later. There comes a moment when you realize the version of success you once admired no longer fits. Letting go of who you thought you'd be is uncomfortable, but reinvention at this stage is repositioning, not regression. You have enough experience to pivot intelligently, enough humility to admit misalignment, enough resilience to withstand temporary uncertainty. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Redefinition is the cost of ownership. When you choose alignment over approval, you reclaim authorship of your direction. Redefining your path may mean changing industries after recognizing your strengths lie elsewhere. It may mean ending a relationship when shared values diverge under real-world stress. It may mean relocating not for prestige but for growth. It may simply mean shifting from chasing rapid advancement to building depth. These decisions are rarely dramatic, they are deliberate. They require strategic patience and tolerance for temporary ambiguity. But ambiguity is not chaos, it is construction. Ownership begins the moment you stop waiting for permission. No one is coming to define your direction. Employers will use your talent. Markets will shift. Peers will accelerate and decelerate at different speeds. The trajectory you're setting is shaped by choices that seem small. What you tolerate, what you study, who you spend time with, what you ignore. James Allen wrote, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so." If you see yourself as behind, your decisions will be defensive. If you see yourself as positioning, your decisions will be intentional. This is not about urgency, it is about intention. You are old enough to understand the consequences, young enough to adjust course. The invisible work you commit to now, the disciplined thinking, the recalibration, the alignment, will not make headlines. It may not even earn immediate recognition, but it will alter your leverage. It will strengthen your judgment. It will expand your options. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is where trajectory is formed. Each setback, each comparison trigger, each doubt, these are stimuli. Your response determines direction. One day you will recognize that the quiet decisions made in these years, what you built when no one applauded, what you corrected when no one noticed, created momentum that felt sudden, but was anything but. This was not the decade you arrived, it was the decade you positioned yourself to rise."